Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This is a tough time for everybody, and as we continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, we remember the health and well-being of Manitobans is going to continue to be our top priority. It's a global health pandemic. It's a financial pandemic too, and we have been at the forefront in supporting both frontline healthcare workers and others in the social services, as well as offering direct supports, approaching now $500 million in direct supports to the Manitoba small business community and others that are impacted by the economic meltdown that we are currently experiencing. We've also announced yesterday the $45 million program to show some appreciation to our seniors and to recognize the situation that they face, one of the most stressful, I think, in Manitoba history for our seniors. Our Help Next Door Manitoba portal has seen over 6,000 Manitobans sign up from close to 170 communities now across the province, offering assistance to those in need, including our senior population. And we've also now been notified that one other province will be joining in, but we were the first to offer mental health support programs in-home to those experiencing stress in this difficult and challenging time. That'll be announced later this week, but we expect other provinces to follow as well. This is an excellent service and an important one at a time of great stress to many Manitobans. As well, we've been at the forefront of supporting our small business community, and to date we've introduced our $120 million GAP program to support small businesses, and I wanted to give you just a quick update on that. Since launching the portal on Friday last week, we've had over 1,000 applications received. Over 800 businesses already have a check in their account. And that turnaround time and the wait times, which have been incredibly short, means we're not only saving our applicants time, but we're helping them to get back on their feet as soon as possible and get ready for the recovery that we all hope and pray is coming. In addition, in terms of supporting our young people, we recently announced the Summer Student Recovery Plan, and that is a wage subsidy program with an investment of, we believe, approximately $120 million. Of course, it'll depend on applications, and we hope and encourage young people to be involved. We encourage small businesses to be involved too in hiring young people through the next few weeks and months to assist them in finding employment in the private sector or in nonprofit sectors. And I would say again to our charitable sector, to our nonprofits, that this is a program for you also if you would like to encourage and hire young people this summer to assist them in pursuing their education, for example. This funding will allow employers to receive up to a 50% subsidy, up to $5,000 per student hired. And I think that there is no doubt that for many of us in Manitoba, we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for the opportunities we were given to have meaningful summer employment. And so I encourage those who are wanting to go on to pursue post-secondary education also to look for opportunities to find work, and this program should assist you in doing so. In addition, I should mention that we are deferring repayment of loans at this time, and this is of course previously announced, but I say again, this is important for our students. Our Manitoba Student Aid Program payments will be deferred. This will give students a much needed break as well from the debt burden that would be worsened by COVID-19. Today I want to announce something that I think will help us to go even further for our students and also support our post-secondary institutions. As Manitobans may know, we have had introduced as a government back in 2016 a matching program and beefed it up significantly for scholarships and bursaries. We want to announce today that we are going to be matching all funds raised by universities and colleges for that bursary initiative dollar for dollar. Our program previously was $1 of government support for each $2 raised by outside. We recognize that this year, and I had the privilege of serving on a foundation board for many years, it is a challenge for post-secondary institutions anytime to raise money for scholarships and bursaries. With the economy in the present state it's in, we expect that these challenges will not be less. So as a consequence, we want to make sure that we're taking steps to lessen the burden on our post-secondary institutions during this pandemic. At the same time, we want to make sure that the scholarships and bursaries are available to those who need them at the time they need them. We're changing this contribution ratio because it's important that we maintain our strong partnership with post-secondary institutions and our shared vision for access to education as something worth investing in. And as we all work together through this public health emergency, that's exactly what we plan to do. By changing the formula for this year only, temporarily matching contributions at the ratio of 1-to-1, we'll be able to ensure more financial support for students' educations amid those real fundraising challenges that will be faced by post-secondary institutions during this pandemic. It's necessary for us to step up for our students and for post-secondary schools with greater funding support during these uncertain times. We had announced in our budget pre-pandemic that we would increase our support for the Manitoba Scholarship and Bursary Initiative to $10 million in this fiscal year. That would be a record level had we been able to achieve that. What I am committing our government to today, on behalf of all Manitobans who understand the importance of investing in post-secondary education and training, is an increase to $15 million. In other words, a 50% increase over the budgeted allotment. Students are the future of our province. We are giving them greater financial support because we believe it's important to help stimulate our economy now and move the province forward in the future. And well-trained young people are going to play a key role in making sure that that is what happens. As we continue to carefully reopen our economy, as we continue to move forward and recover from this pandemic, our young people and our students will have a very, very important role to play, and their success will be an important part of our recovery. All Manitobans are working together to protect themselves and others, and thank you for doing that. We'll get through these difficult and uncertain times. Stay positive, encourage one another, help one another. We'll be back. Together we will beat this thing. I'd be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. A reminder to the reporters online, due to time constraints today, you will each have one question. And up first this afternoon from CBC Manitoba, Ian.
Good afternoon, Premier. Ian Frey, CBC. You were asked yesterday about, if you're planning to waive the drug dispensing fees, and you said absolutely. Your health minister said today that the government is thinking of sort of changing the 30-day limit on prescriptions and closely monitoring that situation. Can you clarify that your government is thinking of doing both of those things, and if so, what's the barrier preventing those changes from already happening?
Well, I would say that the health minister will have something more concrete to offer than I can offer today. I expect in the not too distant future, so I'll let the health minister do that.
From the Canadian Press, Steve.
Steve Lambert from the Canadian Press. Premier, earlier this week, your finance minister gave some broad outlines as to what the labor force cost reductions will be. And in the broad category of other reporting entities, which would include school division and universities, he said it would be about 1.3%, about $89 million. Can you tell us what that means in terms of real job numbers at the post-secondary institutions?
Well, I think, Steve, you understand that'll be determined by the management decisions that are made in discussion and consultation with the labor force that they manage. So really those numbers, apart from the global numbers, in our area of responsibility are what we're laying out for you and for others so that they understand the magnitude of the impacts on post-secondary, approximately 1%, impacts overall less than 3%. We have throughout government and Crowns and our other agencies, our outside reporting entities, we have many offices closed. We have many people that aren't able to do the work that they would like to do during this time. And we have incredible work being done on the front lines. So this is where this exercise has gone is to try to find resources to assist us on the front line while at the same time avoiding as much as we possibly can layoffs. That's what each of our management teams is trying to do. But there will be an impact, and we've given you, I think, a pretty good description of what the overall impact will be, and the details will be ironed out as each of the entities makes their necessary management decisions.
From City News, Stephanie.
Mr. Premier, Stephanie Lasuk from City News. You mentioned it yourself, with community groups and other entities that raise money for bursaries and scholarships are really struggling right now. Do you think even with this dollar-for-dollar match, it'll match the same level of bursaries and scholarships that students would have expected a year ago?
Yeah, I think so, Stephanie. That I say, understanding the challenges. Sorry. Sorry about that. I say that understanding the challenges that all the fundraising, all the people involved in fundraising for scholarships and bursaries face, in particular right now, but also understanding that much of the fundraising efforts have already been underway pre-pandemic. And so, yes, I think that there will be the ability to do this. And I also think that by reducing the obligation on the universities by about 25%, we're recognizing that there will be a challenge there, but we believe it can be met, yes. So the overall amount of scholarships and bursaries, I should mention, that will be available in this year will be more than 4 times as much as was available when we came to government, more than quadruple. And I say thank you to the universities, the foundation, board members, and other fundraising efforts that people are undertaking. I say thank you to Manitobans for that. But we have, as a government, clearly identified this investment as a priority. Investing in post-secondary education and training is critical. We're going to continue to partner with our universities and our community colleges to make sure those investments are made.
From the Winnipeg Free Press, Larry.
Premier Larry Cush at the Free Press. We've been hearing over the past day from a lot of Manitoba seniors who say that they plan to donate the $200 check they're going to receive because they don't need it. I have a 2-part question for you. Are you going to donate your check because you will qualify for it? And do you still think it was prudent not to target assistance to the seniors who need it the most?
Absolutely prudent. You want to get the money out there. I applaud any Manitoban who wants to donate to a charity or a worthy cause, and I thank those seniors who are able to afford to do that for doing that. I'm proud of, and I think all Manitobans are proud of the fact that we've led the country in charitable donations since they started keeping the stat, so do that. But recognize that an income-tested program would have taken months to roll out, that the money wouldn't have been available to those who do need it, who are seniors who are in need right now. And good on those who want to donate it to charity. That's their option, and I thank them for doing that. And good for us for supporting the seniors who can't and aren't in a position to afford to do so as well.
From Global, Brittany.
Good afternoon, Mr. Premier. You spoke yesterday and said nobody has been laid off in government to this point in time besides those 1,200 or 1,300 MDLL workers, but we've spoken to unions that have seen 50-plus casual staff let go at the Art Gallery, 40 at the Manitoba Museum, upwards of 300 people in total that may not be directly on the provincial payroll, but are certainly dependent on the province for funding. What do you say to those people and all of those jobs that are lost?
Well, I'd say I'm sorry your job's lost, but the work didn't need to be done right now, and I'm looking forward to having the economy resurge so that you'll be able to get your jobs back. But I maintain that there are also, in our province, 250,000 people outside of government that have been impacted by this pandemic. 250,000 people, so don't expect that the government is going to continue to pay everybody 100%. We have been doing that, and I'm proud of the fact that we've maintained the payroll, the generous benefits, the pension for all our workers. But there are 250,000 of your friends and neighbors that are being impacted right across this province, and so a 2% impact on the public sector side is a reasonable accommodation and a balanced way to address the reality that we need to find more resources for the front line of healthcare right now. And the fact of the matter is that we're not just going to be able to ask the private sector to come up with that money right now, because they're already paying an incredible price on the private sector side.
From the Brandon Sun, Drew. From the Brandon Sun, Drew. We'll move on to the Winnipeg Sun and Josh.
Good afternoon, Premier. This is Josh Aldridge with the Winnipeg Sun. There was only one bill brought forward today during the sitting. It's a private members bill 213, the Personal Protective Equipment Reporting Act. It's calling for the stockpiles of personal protective equipment to be reported. Was this not done before? And what are the current stockpiles for personal protective equipment? Where are we in terms of availability for our frontline workers?
Well, 2 points, Josh. I think every jurisdiction in the Western world is running up against the challenge of procuring personal protective equipment. We're not the only ones. We were the first to sign on with the federal government. We took immediate steps to not only do that, but to work with our people in Manitoba, as you know, to advance the production here of personal protective gear. But like every other jurisdiction, I would say there was this pandemic has caught, I think, everybody to some degree by surprise. I think that this advice in the middle of the pandemic to create storage of additional materials and so on is understandable coming from the opposition. It's advice which I'm sure every other opposition party around the democratic world will be giving the government in hindsight. And I should mention it was advice that was given to the previous NDP government who failed to do it after the SARS epidemic some years ago as well.
From CTV Winnipeg to Ria.
Good afternoon, Mr. Premier. I had a question about schools. When students do return, possibly in September, will they be staggered? Will classrooms look different? Maybe some kids arrive one day and others arrive the next day because, as you've said before, physical distancing is very difficult in the classroom. I'm just wondering if anything like that is being looked at.
Yeah, I'm sure there's all kinds of possibilities. I'm aware of some that are already being discussed and looked at. We'll follow the advice of our health experts in terms of how we are restructuring our schools. And I should also mention I've formed interdepartmental committees now that are already looking at ways that we can offer government services as well in the future more effectively while adhering to the social distancing and other requirements to maintain the health and well-being of all our people. And I would also mention we're looking at other options as well, some of which have been used to date for working remotely and working from home, for example, as well. So these are all on the table. And I would say I just actually had a very good discussion yesterday afternoon with Premier Kenney from Alberta on some of the initiatives that we're both taking. And we shared some ideas that we anticipate will be shared more broadly by other provincial governments going forward on how we can do a better job of offering services as we move forward and deal with the realities of this pandemic and its subsequent realities as well. Just say thank you to everyone. I apologize for not being able to take more questions today. I do have a couple of other things I've got to attend to right now. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe.